Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. I have not done a power scaling video in forever, and the next part of Lord Boros Turn Good is getting longer and longer and I keep adding things to it, so I thought I'd take a little break from the series and do a shorter video before focusing back in on the story. So today I am going to talk about something that has been on my mind recently. Just how strong are the characters in One Punch Man? Because I've been seeing quite a bit of what I would consider to be underestimations of the power of this series, especially outside of the One Punch Man community. And I'm not talking about the god tier characters like Saitama or Garo or Empty Void or God. Those usually get plenty of recognition, even a little too much sometimes in my opinion. But I am talking about the regular cast, the non-god characters such as all the S-Class minus Blast, the Monster Association higher-ups, and so on. Basically everybody on Boros' level and below. I keep seeing people place fighters like Bang and Flashy Flash at mountain to island level, I keep seeing Tatsumaki placed at multi-continental, and I keep seeing Boros capped at planet surface level because of this one statement. And while they can be scaled there, if you're really stingy, I want to present my views on how powerful these guys are and sort of give a more highballed interpretation. Be warned, I will be talking quite a bit about things like joules and calculations, so if you're really not fond of that stuff, this video might not be what you're looking for. And also, it does get a little bit messy at points, but I'll try to keep things as simple and as uncomplicated as possible. And without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. The main benchmarks of power within One Punch Man that most other high-tier characters scale off of are Sage Centipede and the Monster King Orochi. Sage obviously fights Garo and gets damaged by him, so Garo's punches should scale to his durability. This is the Garo who fought Platinum S, and while he did grow immensely stronger than Platinum by the end of the fight, it's not by more than a one-shot tier, as he took 2 solid blows to kill Platinum, not 1. So Platinum scales a one-shot tier below Sage, with a gap maybe even being a little less than that. Flashy can tango with a suppressed Platinum S pretty well, even pushing him back and forcing him to use Platinum Rings for defense. He also takes several blows from S and Garo alike. Bang fights Garo right before this, and even if you think Garo grew far stronger from his fight with Bang to his fight with Flashy and Platinum, it's still at most like a one-shot tier, maybe 10 times max. It's not like Garo grew hundreds of times stronger just by waking up. There is absolutely nothing to support that. All this to say, Flashy Flash and Bang, while definitely far weaker than Sage, should be no more than a few one-shot tiers below him, narratively speaking. There is nothing to suggest Garo just somehow grew millions of times stronger from the Bang and Flashy Flash fights to the Sage fight. Meaning wherever Sage Centipede scales, Flashy Flash and Bang should scale somewhere nearby. To give an estimation, a one-shot multiplier is usually considered to be around 7.5 times, so I'll be using that. We'll say Sage Centipede is a one-shot level above Platinum S, who at full power we'll say is like 10 times stronger than what he was when he was suppressed against Flashy Flash. And then Bang is a one-shot level below that, let's say, just for those who believe that Bang is much weaker than Flash, putting Flashy Flash at 75 times weaker than Sage Centipede, and Bang at 562.5 times weaker than Sage. This is also sort of lowballing them, since assuming Platinum was only using 10% of his power against Flash is very generous for Platinum, and very stingy towards Flash. But even while lowballing, the gap between Sage and these two high-tier heroes is large, yes, but not that large. If Sage is multi-continental, for example, then there is no way Bang and Flashy Flash can be island level. The gap is just not that big. We'll get into how strong I think Sage is a bit later, but for now, I want to explore the ramifications of Bang specifically not being that far below Sage. Silver Fang is definitely a top-tier hero, however, we see numerous times that there are characters who scale near him. Rover takes his attacks, Elder Centipede takes his attacks, Fear Ugly takes a beating from him, Dark Shine scales to a stronger Fear Ugly, Goketsu is implied to be in these tiers of power, Psychos and Garo have scaling to this level. Many characters scale near Bang. Now, quick tangent, I've seen people use this to downplay Bang's performance against Garo, specifically since he seems to have used the Awakening Breath on Ugly, and Ugly took his blows. But the thing is, full power bang and serious bang are different. Silverfang keeps saying over and over again that he can only really go all out one more time in his life. He says against Stellar Centipede and against Garo that he has to trade his very life force, and it's implied that he can never fight again if he does this. In all these other fights he's trying for sure, but he's obviously not sapping his very life against Ugly or Over. So to me it seems that Bang only scales to Monster Garo when he does his all-out final battle in my life awakening breath. And the breathing he does against Ugly might be some weird in-between stage between his base and his full prowess. Sort of like Garo when he goes up against the 8 heroes who hunted him, he uses something similar where it's kind of the awakening breath, but like we don't really know, it's never really stated. It's a little weird, but it does make sense to me, and it does clear up some things that would be odd otherwise. But anyways, this final battle in my life stage shouldn't be hundreds of times stronger than Bang in every other fight. Again, there's nothing to imply that large of a gap. So all these characters on screen right now do scale near to, or in some cases even above, Bang, who does scale to a fraction of Sage Centipede. So if Sage is multi-continental, these guys should all range from hundreds to maybe thousands of times weaker than him, but not more than that. Whatever level Sage scales to, these guys should scale to a tiny extent. The weakest of them might be like country level if you really lowball Sage, but if you use more consistent calculations for Sage, all of these guys are continent busters, at least. And if you highball Sage, most of these guys are multi-continental. Some of the stronger ones like Platinum and Psychos might even be moon level. Now let's finally address Sage Centipede and his level of power. Going off of various calculations that have been done, he ranges from continental as the lowest of lowballs to multi-continental as a midball to small planetary as a highball. I'll link a bunch of the calcs for this in the video description. The main problem with Sage is that his size is extremely inconsistent on panel, so the calculations vary greatly, and they also use very different speeds for him as well, since nobody really agrees on where his speed exactly should scale. I personally believe he should be bare minimum multi-continental as a lowball, because his partner, Evil Ocean Water, just by existing, has been calced to that level due to how much water it's holding together, and the creature's attacks should obviously be much stronger than its mere presence, and Sage should scale to Ocean Water since they have the exact same narrative. More consistently though, I'd place him at small planetary because lore-wise he should be somewhat comparable to Orochi, who I will get into in a second. Some people say he's stronger, and when only talking about the narrative that might be the case, but that's its own video. I'm tempted to make a part 2 of my Sage vs Orochi video, but for now I will say I believe these guys in terms of their raw power output are sort of comparable. And if you think Sage is a lot stronger, then that just upscales the rest of the cast. It does not downscale Orochi or anybody that I will scale off of Orochi. Now getting to the Monster King, his main feat is pulling the Earth's core, the calcs for which range between multi-continental as a lowball and actually planet level as a highball, surprisingly. Yeah, believe it or not, there's a planet level calc for this feat too. Now I scoured the internet and went through numerous calcs, and here's the trend I found. The multi-continental meta for this feat is mostly when only calculating the potential energy, not kinetic energy. I won't go into the high school physics of how this works to explain the differences, but basically, potential energy is pretty much always lower than kinetic energy. The reason people use potential energy for this calc instead of kinetic energy is because we do not have an exact time frame for Orochi's feat here. So we have to estimate, which these estimates usually range from tens of seconds to a few minutes, which does affect the outcome of the calculations. But after several hours of just going through calcs and forums and various sites, I was actually really surprised to find that the small planet level calcs are kind of the norm for Orochi actually. Yeah, you heard that right. Small planetary calcs make up like 50% of all the calcs for Orochi that I went through. Before I viewed it as kind of a highball cause I'd only seen like 2 small planet calcs for Orochi, and the consensus seemed to be that he's multi-continental to moon level. But actually no, small planetary is kind of the most consistent value for this showing. I'll link a bunch of calcs for Orochi in the description as well, but yeah, the planet level meta and the multi-continental meta are the outliers here. Small planet level is the most consistent by far across numerous different people making independent calculations, with moon level being the second most popular by a significant margin. Even just on sites like Versus Battle Wiki, I just keep seeing people casually bring up that, yeah, this is just the small planetary feat right here. Like, they're just talking about it like it's accepted when, for some reason, they still have Orochi at multi-continental there for whatever reason. Like, yeah, they list one calc for that, but like, there have been multiple others, more than the multi-continental meta. There have been many more for small planetary. And even if you say that this is still a highball, these calcs often don't include the fact that the chunk of energy is traveling through the layers of the Earth, so the resistance is much greater and much more force is required to pull it than if it was just going through the air. So whatever slight highballs there might be should get cancelled out by the lowballs in these calcs. And if it's still hard to believe, here is a 2-scale comparison I did of how large the chunk Orochi pulls is compared to the Moon and to Mercury, a small planet. Imagine this chunk hitting either of these celestial bodies at any substantial speed. I could totally see it doing very serious damage to both of them, maybe even destroy depending on the speed. And even if you can't see it personally, the calcs aren't for exactly how much this chunk moving could destroy. It's just the raw energy it's generating by moving, and that energy is comparable to the energy needed to destroy a small planet in most cases when it's being calculated. So yeah, Orochi in my opinion is now just pretty definitively small planet level. As not even a highball, it's just the most consistent calc that I see. And by extension, I do believe Sage should be somewhere around there as well. And by extension, everyone who downscales from Sage should be in that continental to multi-continental range, with some reaching moon level. So when people say Boros is multi-continental, no, that is Bang's level of power. I understand it's hard to imagine, but remember, I'm not claiming that Atomic Samurai could blow up a continent. I am saying that if there was a guy who could survive a continent exploding, Atomic could cut him. Atomic Samurai does not have the range and destructive capacity to slash a continent, but he does have the attack potency to cut a guy who could do that. And the same applies to Bang, to Goketsu, to Elder Centipede, to Rover. These guys all have the attack potency, or durability, or both, that do scale to these levels. But wait a second, didn't you put in the thumbnail that these guys should apparently all be casual planet busters? Well, yeah, the behemoths we are about to get to are. They certainly are. Now we are entering the top of the food chain when it comes to the regular One Punch Man cast not associated with God in some way. The best of the best. Orochi, Tatsumaki, Garo, Boros, and Genos. Yes, Genos. And I'm really excited about this section of the video specifically because I don't think anyone realizes just how crazy of a monster Orochi, Genos, Tatsumaki, or Boros is. But first, let's cover Garo real quick. It's not a stretch to say that Garo, upon perfecting his fist, is a one-shot tier above Sage Centipede. I mean, he literally chopped him in half, you can't get much more blatant than that. So let's take one of Sage's small planet level calcs and just upscale Garo from it. I'll use this calc because it's the one where the method used was Sage's ultimate attack, the 6666 leg drill. So this is Sage's full output, and of course he withstood the force of spinning this fast without falling apart, so his durability should scale to this feat, putting Sage Centipede at 1.4 times 10 to the 31 joules of energy. And since we're using 7.5 as the one-shot multiplier, we just multiply these joules by that amount to get perfected fist Garo at 1.05 times 10 to the 32 joules, which is just on the border between small planet level and planet level. If Garo was just over 2 times stronger, he would reach planet level. But wait, he does get stronger multiple times throughout this fight with Saitama. Just in his first evolution alone, he goes from not being able to do anything to Saitama to thinking he can beat him. Then he evolves further, and Garo considers this to be a massive increase because he gets upset when Saitama calls him only a tad better than before. Speaking of which, the difference was large enough for Saitama to notice it, which is impressive given the context of the series. You know, the One Punch Man, who usually can't quantify people's power, did notice an increase. And then Garo grows even more until his final gargoyle form. So while the boosts he gets are a bit vague and unquantifiable, it is definitely far more than 2 times, putting later versions of Monster Garo at planet level. This is pretty consistent with some of the calcs for his feats of bulging the Earth, also being calced anywhere from moon level to even large planetary sometimes, but that's more of an outlier. Him being just planetary is completely fine though. More than fine, it's very likely actually. With all the increases Garo got, he is certifiably planet level. Now moving over to Orochi's scaling chain, I will use this calc that places his feat of sucking the Earth's core at 2.5 times 10 to the 31 joules from the same thread as Sage's calc. It's not the highest end, but it's not the lowest end either, so I think it's fine to use this one, since it's kind of the middleman for Orochi's calcs. Could be higher, could be lower, you know, it's fine, we're midballing. Moving forward with this, the joule value in this calc is only accounting for Orochi's pull strength. Not his punches, not his energy blasts, and definitely not the Gaia Cannon. Just Orochi's suck is that powerful. His ultimate attack, the Gaia Cannon, should be substantially stronger than his literal suck force. I think it being twice as strong is a fair lowball. I mean, we are literally comparing his vacuuming strength to the strength of his strongest move. So the Gaia Cannon is twice as powerful as the suck, and Orochi could withstand its energy coursing through his body just fine. Saitama then cancels the cannon out with a serious squirt gun and punches Orochi, completely owning him. A one-shot increase is 7.5 times, so Saitama's punch here should be 15 times stronger than the suck. Orochi then comes back fused with Psychos, and immediately upon fusing we find out that not only does this fusion remember Saitama one-punching Orochi, but now thinks it can kill the Baldy, and literally calls him fodder. Like, bruh. Anime fandoms use this word all the time, but here an actual character in a series is calling another character fodder. And it's Saitama of all people. They're calling Saitama fodder. I think it's fair to say that Sairochi is in a completely different league compared to what she perceives Saitama to be at, which means Sairochi could be a one-shot tier above the punch that one-shot Orochi. And it actually makes a lot of sense. This isn't just a fusion of 2 characters, something which in anime usually results in a massive multiplier anytime it happens just by itself. No, this is a fusion, plus a boost from God himself. God descended from the heavens to bless this person.
Come, my child. I shall grant you power to defeat that bald guy. Bless your mortal soul.
The same guy who turned a homeless man into a continent-busting monster, and the same one who turned a planetary Garo into somebody who put a hole in the cosmos. A one-shot multiplier here is, if anything, a lowball, considering Orochi received 2 gigantic boosts. So we add a one-shot increase to Saitama's punch here and get initial Sairochi now at 112.5 times stronger than Orochi's tail vacuum cleaner. Sairochi tangos with suppressed Tatsumaki a little before absorbing a ton of energy from the earth, getting bigger and so much stronger that Tatsumaki goes from viewing her as a joke to actually getting concerned about her. Tatsumaki even says combining several monsters would never result in such power, and wonders where all this could have come from, which we know God was involved. So Sairochi received a pretty massive buff on top of her initial self here. She absorbed energy from her roots, grew in size, and then started genuinely concerning Tatsumaki, who before didn't think much of this fusion. I think it's fair to say Sairochi got at least 2 times stronger. I mean, Tatsumaki went from looking bored to this. So yeah, I think 2 times is fair, I would say, placing complete prime Sairochi at 225 times more powerful than Orochi's feat. Now to address something else real quick, the continent shave is usually calced at like multi-continental or moon level, but it never directly hit the earth. It was just used to shave it. If it connected directly, it could have done way more, so this feat shouldn't be used to downscale these characters. And Tatsumaki being impressed by this is fine. She could sense the energy output and know that, damn, this graze just shaved a continent. Imagine if it actually hit the planet. Things would have been rough. You can very easily argue that she isn't impressed by the shave itself, but by the energy that she's sensing and the fact that, yeah, a graze did that. I cannot let these beams hit the earth directly. And it might also be a destruction capacity versus attack potency thing too. So yeah, please don't use this to try to downscale, it does not work. But anyways, getting back to the fight, Tatsumaki tanks this beam head on with either a passive barrier or a very quick shield and only gets a little singed. Genos then comes in for 10 seconds and manages to not only deflect one of Sairochi's beams, not only match multiple smaller beams, not only clash with a full power beam, but even slightly overpower it. Genos in his 10-second mode is an absolute beast who should not be underestimated. He is clashing with a character who is hundreds of times stronger than Orochi's small planetary feet. And then when Tatsumaki is actually able to focus on the battle, she casually catches Sairochi's full power beam, tosses it to the side like nothing, paralyzes the fusion, gives her one of the coldest death glares in manga history, and one-shots her! Raw as fuck! I've seen people say that Sairochi here is weaker than before due to her roots being severed, but no, they were never severed. They're specifically called out to still be there, and Tatsumaki only destroys them with a twist at the end. Plus, Sairochi just blatantly states that up until this moment, Tatsumaki was always suppressed. This is fatigued and heavily injured Tatsumaki doing this feat too, as she took a ton of damage before this due to having to hold back all the time. It's kind of funny that if all the heroes just stayed behind in bed and sent Tatsumaki out to fight the Monster Association all by herself, she would have actually had a much easier time and completed the mission in like 10 minutes, with the only challenge being finding the hostage. But that's besides the point. If this isn't a one-shot, I do not know what is. Tatsumaki literally caught Sairochi's strongest beam and just tossed it like a toy before bodying her. So 225 times 7.5 is now 1,687.5 times stronger than Orochi's Suck Force. And this wasn't even Tatsumaki in her prime. She was so hurt that she was looking like Itachi after performing this feat. Imagine Tatsumaki at full health, full power. She would be even stronger. So now let's tally everything up. Orochi's full power is 5 times 10 to the 31 joules, which is high small planet level. Saitama's punch is then 3.75 times 10 to the 32 joules, which is low planet level. Initial Sairochi sits comfortably at 2.8125 times 10 to the 33 joules, which is planet level. Complete Sairochi is 5.6 times 10 to the 33 joules, still planet level. Genos is also capable of reaching this with his 10-second mode. And Tatsumaki, while injured and dying, stands at 4.2 times 10 to the 34 joules, which is large planet level. Yeah, I bet you've never heard that one before. And Boros, well, you already know Boros, stated to rival, suppress Saitama, stated in the One Punch Man compass to be stronger than Tatsumaki, as his battle against Saitama was the strongest versus the strongest at the time in the series when Tatsumaki was present. Directly stated in the anime episode summary and in the back of volume 7 of the manga that Boros versus Saitama would decide the fate of the Earth, meaning my goat would have slaughtered the S-class if Saitama failed, Tatsumaki included. Stated in the compass again that Boros is beyond the limitations of any living being, completely placing him above Tatsumaki, since she has not broken her limiter by either training or coming into contact with God. In the audiobooks, Tatsumaki could do nothing to Saitama with hair, and in their actual battle in the manga, Saitama only considers her to be pretty tough. Meanwhile, he acknowledges Boros as strong after just trading punches with him, before even seeing any of his energy attacks or his meteoric burst. Released Boros' punches are large planetary, and higher, and meteoric burst is much higher than that. Please stop using this planet surface level statement to scale him. It's just stating his intention, not stating the limits of his power. And even if it was intended to be his cap back in the day, it has very clearly been retconned due to us getting much higher feats from other characters and Boros being stated above them. And there are also guides that back up Boros being a casual planet buster. But if you want more details on where I scale the Cyclops and how he could be scaled even higher than what I've provided here today, feel free to check out any of the 9,000 other videos I've made on him in the past. And that has been it for me today. I originally intended to cover the speed of One Punch Man characters in this video as well, but it's already long enough as it is. I might make a part 2 sometime in the future focusing on speed. But anyways, let me know if you enjoyed this video, tell me how I'm wrong in the comments, and with nothing else to say, I wish you a great rest of your day. Goodbye.